Light flies through my cousin's window where her head had been 60 seconds prior. There's a hole in the wall in place of a television. There are no grocery stores within a mile radius of the bullet. The schools within a mile radius of the bullet are primarily Black, primarily low income, and failing. There are no doctor's offices or trauma centers or hospitals within a mile radius of the bullet, but there is the lake. Yet some haven't seen it in fear of crossing gang territory. The bullet is shot as a cry for help, a last mechanism of survival, a final attempt to provide for itself what society has deprived it of. The bullet exists because the person behind it has nothing to lose but wilderness. And the only thing that can develop in wilderness is fire. This narrative is true to many of Chicago's South and West Side neighborhoods, including South Shore, where I grew up. Other than residing in my childhood home, I never did much in South Shore. We used to walk to the Dominick's with our half-broken grocery cart until it was defunct about 4 years ago. The residents of South Shore fought for Mariano's to be built in its place when they were being built in other areas of the city, but they were ignored. There is not a single grocery store within the entire neighborhood of South Shore. When we didn't have a car, my mom would get on the bus with that same broken grocery cart going blocks and blocks away just to put food on our table. Or she'd wrap herself in about 5 layers and stand in the cold for hours just to get fresh produce from a food pantry. When we did have a car, I'd sometimes go with her and do homework while she stood in line. It is currently impossible to acquire food of sustenance in the South Shore neighborhood without it being rationed to you. It is also impossible to acquire a nurturing education of the same quality and with the same resources as schools on the north side of Chicago without leaving South Shore. And I am all too familiar with this reality. I've never been educated near my home. When I was 4 years old, my mama had me tested to be educated in the Gifted Center at Carnegie Elementary. Although on the south side, it was 15 minutes away from my home near University of Chicago campus in Hyde Park. There are 13 regional gifted centers in Chicago. 4 are on the south side, 1 is on the west side, which means that 8 of these gifted centers are on Chicago's north side, which is significantly smaller than the south and west sides of Chicago combined. For South and West Side students who are predominantly Black and brown, it is necessary that we attend these gifted centers in order to receive an education somewhat equivalent to that being offered on the north side of Chicago, which is predominantly white. However, many North Side students have the opportunity to attend their neighborhood schools and still receive the same type of education being offered at gifted centers due to funding by tax increment financing or wealthy parents and community residents who are able to pool their resources in order to benefit the schools their children attend. Now, my entire life, I've known I couldn't go to the school down the street from me. My mama used to be a substitute teacher there for a short period of time, and she used to talk about the outdated textbooks, the dysfunctional technology, and other examples of deficiency. I never knew there was a land in my city where people were able to have multiple options of grocery stores, receive a well-resourced education, and ultimately touch abundance all in their neighborhood. I never knew Oasis existed until I saw it myself. After 1.5 years of middle school at Kenwood Academy, I found myself taking a selective enrollment exam that would tell me if I was worthy of attending the top high schools in the city. With only 1 point short of perfect, I was admitted into Walter Payton College Prep, now the #1 public school in the country. Now, when I ranked Payton as my #1 choice, I didn't know that it sat in the middle of Oasis and what that would mean for the years to come. Now, that was 2013. 2013 would prove to be a pivotal year for Black and brown students in Chicago. 54 schools were closed on the south and west sides of Chicago, leading to a massive wave of displacement, requiring that children cross gang territory in order to receive an education. During the 2013 to 2014 academic year, many South and West Side schools saw an influx of students that their dilapidated school buildings could not accommodate. It is important to note that at the same time as 54 schools closed their doors for the summer for the last time, Walter Payton College Prep received $17 million for the next, entirely funded by TIF. Now, for 4 years of my life, I rode a bus packed to the brim with Black students, service workers, and South Shore residents heading downtown, got off that bus and went to the train, took the train further up north, and then got off the train and went to school. Now, on a good day with good weather, that took a little over an hour. My first year of high school, I realized that other Black and brown students faced the same problem. We had really early mornings, really late nights, and some of us crossed gang territories daily. I became used to seeing my neighborhood only in the dark. During the day, I'd bask in Oasis, and at night return home to wilderness I'd never been able to recognize as such, before I saw how the white people up north lived and what they took for granted. Now, I did not complete this trek out of curiosity and adventure. I did it because to stay in my neighborhood would have been to my detriment. I have been fleeing the neighborhood of South Shore since the age of 4 in order to thrive. And that in itself is a human rights violation. We should not be refugees from our communities seeking asylum in spaces intentionally excluding us. And we shouldn't be demonized for what we do with nothing either. We don't all have the privilege to access resources outside of our communities. The people behind bullets are family and friends who've been put in a fishbowl with no food, infested water, and expected to survive. In Chicago, we are dying, and it is not our fault. It is the fault of everything that doesn't exist and everyone who has the means to provide but won't. And here's the thing, Chicago is not the only Chicago. Chicago is not the only land with an oasis surrounded by miles and miles and miles of wilderness. I sat on a panel at the Obama Foundation Summit with women from around the world. We talked about our stories and our struggles. During the question and answer segment, a Black woman arose in the audience and said, "You never know any of you were from different places." Let that sink in. Impoverished people, Black and brown people all over the world are dying not because we want to, but because we have no choice not to. We are dying because we have nothing in Colombia. We are dying because we have nothing in Nigeria. We are dying because we have nothing in Syria. We are dying because we have nothing in London. We are dying because we have nothing in Los Angeles. We are dying because we have nothing in Ferguson, and we are dying because we have nothing in Chicago. And we don't need more law enforcement. We don't need more police and demonizing headlines and pitiful donations. What we need are investments. We need resources. It is imperative that anyone with any privilege at all take the steps necessary to provide the resources they see a lack of. And this is possible through perseverance and vigilance. My senior year of high school, I created an independent study for myself which would focus on working with a Southside school to provide the resources they currently lacked. For 18 years of my life, I saw students enter and exit Boucher Elementary, knowing it was like other South and West Side schools, poorly funded and under-resourced. Boucher Elementary is my neighborhood school, the same school my mom came home talking about during her time as a sub there. It is also where I would have gone had I not tested into a gifted center at 4 years old. The student population of Boucher is 98% Black, 98% low income, and 13% homeless. 88% of students at Boucher do not meet or exceed state standards. And these statistics are common amongst most South and West Side schools. Having received an education that resulted in a full ride scholarship to an Ivy League institution, I made those statistics my problem. I found it absolutely immoral to leave South Shore and other South and West Side communities behind. Through my nonprofit, the I Project, I founded the Education Emancipation Campaign, which would aim to work with South and West Side elementary schools to provide the resources they lacked in the city. My first step was to ask the people of Boucher what they needed. Listen, it is vital to ask people what they need because they are the ones enduring that struggle. They know what will alleviate their pain. In response to my question, they said, we need Chromebooks. And we calculated that to provide each child at Boucher with an in-school Chromebook would take $25,000. Now, I was real tempted to jump into the how, but I had to stop myself. I had to tackle this mindset first. The number 25,000 in general scared me. It was near the amount of money my family would see in a year. I had to tell myself that we would achieve that goal by any means necessary. I had to tell myself that I did not have to have economic privilege in order to have power. I had to tackle that internalized depression that tells us that what we have is all we will ever have and all that we deserve. After a lot of self-motivation and empowerment, I was ready to jump into the how. How do we raise $25,000? Honestly, I don't know. But we took it in increments. My mama drove me around the community. I went to barbershops and beauty salons where I stated my case, which was followed by people throwing whatever they had into this large yellow crumpled envelope. I contacted artist friends, local buildings and businesses, and organized a benefit concert in a month and a half. I used every single unconventional resource I had and allocated it towards helping my people by any means necessary. We still aren't done, and we haven't stopped. Now a student at the University of Pennsylvania, I am still doing everything in my power to help those at home by any means necessary. Even when we reach that $25,000 goal, my work will not be finished until there exists no community in wilderness. The ultimate goal is a world where every community falls in the category of Oasis. Imagine that. Imagine a Chicago, a country, a world where there exists nothing but Oasis. Imagine a world where the only thing we have to dodge while outside are raindrops. The bucket boys, the elote man, and the corner store owners are all seen as entrepreneurs. There are no potholes, but fertile soil capable of cultivating produce that may feed an entire community. And there is no need to escape the hood, because the hood loves us just as much as we love it. There are 4 grocery stores within walking distance. Every school has the means to invest in their children. Every child has a chance. Every house has a roof. Every person has a job fit to provide for their entire families. Health, cultivation, education, nourishment, and safety are all within reach. We don't live in this world, but we can. It is imperative that we hold each other accountable to make the vision of Oasis a reality. And only then, after we cultivate bountiful land together, will bullets not be necessary for survival. Thank you.